Nintendo has done it again. Another timeless classic is completely reimagined for a new generation. Every frame, a pristine, crystal clear work of art. Every texture is painstakingly handcrafted with state-of-the-art graphics technology. A game that originally hit shelves on November 18th, 2011 could now easily be mistaken for having released one whole day later. The very culture and language of Skyloft shines through in their customary word for hello, thank you, goodbye, good morning, and good night. Suck my ass. Reasonably priced, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD is a remaster that nobody should miss. Nintendo, your creative director, your artists, your composer, and your level designers all did great and should all get a raise. Everybody else needs to be fired. These controls. Somebody explained to me how and when Nintendo got a reputation for having good core game design mechanics and a polished, smooth, easy-to-control gameplay experience, because that's bullshit, because I think we're playing different games. So Nintendo's core philosophy seems to be, there is only one way to play a game. And thankfully, a decade later, they've revisited that, and now, there are two ways to play a game. Like, bro, have you heard of an options menu? Skyward Sword HD has 0 options whatsoever. Motion controls or not motion controls. Those are your choices. And the controls are bad. You have to hold down a button to turn. You know, movement on the left stick, camera on the right stick. Oh no, sorry, the sword is on the right stick. So to actually turn with the camera, you have to either spam left trigger to recenter it every time you move around, or you can hold down the left bumper while you walk to actually freely move the right camera. In what universe? Now, the sword actually being on the right stick, the directional swings, for the most part, actually work fairly well. So the only issue is the inclusion of just moving your sword. You can freely wave your sword around without actually swinging it. And the stick has a hell of a time telling the difference between just moving your sword and actively swinging your sword. So a lot of times when you think you're flicking the stick, Link will just kind of wave it instead of actually swinging. So that's the only real problem. That happens a lot. But the directional swings themselves, I gotta say, I really like. And it put me in the mood, so I've been on a Zelda binge, so I'm playing Wind Waker HD now too, and I gotta say, I miss the directional swings. It added so much depth to combat. People hold their swords in different directions. Monsters open their exposed fleshy bits in different directions. So you have to swing it the right way and you have to time it correctly. Very few games have attempted and effectively recreated, you know, some degree of realism with swordplay. There's a couple monsters you can only kill with like the plunging attack, and you have to like flick the stick up and then down like in rapid succession. That's tricky to pull off. That's very awkward. But otherwise, the combat itself, actually not bad. Traversing the world is a colossal pain in the ass. You have to hold B to sprint around, and the stamina meter is so infinitesimally tiny that I used all 3 potion slots as fully upgraded stamina potions so I could just constantly run around for free. Because until you do that, you have to hit these little green cabbages along the way. What the shit is this? And the traversal of the sky being kind of the overworld, it seems like a very natural evolution from Wind Waker. You have an ocean below, now you have an ocean above. And it seems like a great idea. But there's hardly anything to do up here, and all of the actual dungeons are down on the surface. Why are these not islands in the sky? Why are these not giant, elaborate rock structures that have, like, you know, lava falling down out of them all the way down to the surface? All of the dungeons should be levels in the sky. There should be more to do in the sky. And then at the very end, for when you fight Ganon, then you can, you know, open up a portal to the surface, and it's like this hellscape down below. It's a shame because it's a nice format, and they set themselves up for success really well. And you know, have this triumphant soundtrack while you're soaring through the sky on your Skyloft. I would like to see the Skyloft used as your storage pack, where you can like store extra arrows and equipment and a second sword or something on it. That'd be kind of neat. And again, HD remaster, you had 10 years, you had a decade to add basic quality of life improvements. And saying that makes it sound like this was acceptable in 2011, and it wasn't. You cannot buy or sell multiples at the shop. You can't. Your options are 1, 5, or all of them. It doesn't tell you how many you have on the screen when you're doing this. You can't, if you wanted to sell 2 or 4, well, fuck you. That's not how the game was meant to be played. Because apparently a number counter that you flick up and down to change the number was too damn hard, despite the fact that that's in Wind Waker, a game 7 years older than Skyward Sword. And the Moonlight Merchant, seriously, fuck this guy. There's a general problem of too many rupees and not very much to spend them on, and one of the actual higher level merchants that you can spend a lot of rupees is the Moonlight Merchant. He sells you a lot lot of the rarer treasures for like 100, 200, 300 rupees. And when you actually go in, it is worse than the regular shops, which don't allow you to sell multiples. If you would like to purchase something from the Moonlight Merchant, you have to go through 3 dialogue prompts. Then, you have to open a chest with 2 unskippable cutscenes. And then, you must run out the cave through a hole of monsters, come back in the cave after 2 refresh loading screens, and do it again. 1 at a time, and then you have to refresh the whole fucking room before he lets you buy anything again. What is this? This is unplayable. This is garbage. Nintendo, everybody. Greatest game developers ever to walk the earth, everybody. And the Switch hardware itself. Okay, the Switch is about as powerful as an Xbox 360. So because we made all these concessions in GPU so that we could have a touchscreen, so that we could have, you know, a portable console, so we could have, you know, gyro motion control nonsense. This game doesn't even use the touchscreen. You couldn't bother to map the touchscreen so that I can tap it on it when I'm typing. You couldn't have, you can't use the touchscreen in the items menu. You can't move around the map on the touchscreen. You can't use the touchscreen. What the hell? You can't even use the D-pad. You have to flick up and down when you're selecting save or dialogue prompts with the stick. And you save at these bird statues by praying to them like a godless heathen, and you cannot teleport back and forth between them. So if you would like to go to another bird statue in the same province, you must go to the sky in your Skyloft, pull a Yui, dive back down, and then reselect it. That's like 3 loading screens. And the boss rush. Fuck the boss rush. So there's the Thunder Dragon God where you can go through all the bosses, and that's how you get the Hylian shield. So I'm going through all of them. You know, some of the bosses are pretty cool. Some of them, most of them, suck. And he's telling you all the rewards, and he gives you like 100 rupees if you like beat your time. And he's like, oh, you know, boss 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you'll get a rare treasure, and then you get a piece of heart, and then you get a Hylian shield. So I'm like, awesome. So I keep going and going and going. I'm like, I'm gonna get all the stuff. And then I hit the last one after the Hylian shield. And he's like, you did it, you completed the boss rush. Here's like 9,000 rupees, which I didn't even have a big enough wallet to carry at the time. And no Hylian shield, no rare treasure, no piece of heart. Because to get those rewards, you must leave the boss rush after completing that specific boss. If you continue, you lose it. You are punished for getting further in the boss rush. I beat all the damn bosses. I don't just get all the shit. Which means if you want all of the treasures, you have to do the whole boss rush like 3 times. Not only is Nintendo content with not giving you all of the rewards for actually completing the boss rush, they're not even willing to explain to you that that's how it works, that you have to quit every boss rush. One of the most infuriating things about Skyward Sword is actually not Skyward Sword's fault. It's the fact that Zelda dropped it immediately after Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword has a fully functioning shield durability, repair, and upgrade system. What the hell happened to that? Congratulations, you've just made me hate Breath of the Wild more. There's 5 different potions you can buy from the potion lady, and then the guy next to him, you can actually like throw bugs in and he'll upgrade them for you, which is kind of broken in the end game because you can get 3 Guardian potions upgraded that give you like 15 straight minutes of invincibility with the potion medal, but I digress. And the pouch system is pretty good too, so you can buy a couple pouch expansions from Beetle, whose shop, by the way, should be like a balloon, like a hot air balloon with a little propeller on it. Like, why is it an actual helicopter? That's weird. Okay, that just bothers me. But your ammunition capacities for arrows, bombs, and seeds can all be manually adjusted, so if you want, you can actually entirely forego a shield, bring like 6 upgraded quivers with you, and have like 90 arrows. The game gives you a lot of freedom with what you take with you, which is actually really nice. A lot of the little mini games are quite fun too. The little bamboo sword where you like flick left and right to cut it down as many times as like the fruit ninja with the bamboo. That's fun. I was absolutely addicted to Thrill Digger and like figuring it out, and it's basically Minesweeper until I found that there's actually an automated solver where like you put in the rubies and it solves the map for you, which is like, oh, that took all the fun out of it. And then I unlocked Fun Fun Island, which is like a guaranteed 500 rupees every single time. So like, why the hell you'd ever do anything after that is beyond me. The game has an economy problem with a surplus of rupees and nothing really to spend them on. All of that aside, actual content level-wise, Skyward Sword's dungeons are fantastic. They really are. There's a very small touch that I really wish they would kind of run with and expand on, where when Link first goes down into the dungeons, he like pauses for a second and the camera zooms in and it's just like this black descent into like death. And Link has to, you know, like grit his teeth and then like courageously go down, like Triforce of Courage manifest in a short little cutscene. That was a really nice touch, and they should kind of go all in on that. Although it does contradict the fact that Zelda's fighting his battles for him at the beginning with Groose. Like, bro, speaking of fighting your battles for you, Pippet, this guy. Absolute legend. Now, technically, you're only divided into 3 major dungeons. So you have, you know, your foresty water one, and then your rock volcano fire one, and then the Lanayru desert. Lanayru and the Sand Sea specifically, super duper cool. The recurring mechanic is the time shift stone. So, you know, you smack them or you shoot them with an arrow or whatever. Then they have an area of effect around them that is in the past like 1,000 years. So you have like desert sections that whoosh, suddenly become like lush and green, and enemies like spring back to life and stuff. And then you put them in like moving mine carts. So the orb of time is passing through space, and it like changes stuff along the way, and you have to like work with it to create puzzles and stuff. And when you're on the Sand Sea, it's literally a desert of quicksand now, but 1,000 years ago it was an ocean. So you have a boat with a time shift stone on it, and it has this orb of water that you're sailing on across a literal desert, all the while fighting off time-traveling robot pirates. Absolutely badass. The mini bosses too. These are like stylized cartoon versions of Dark Souls, Demon Souls bosses. They are awesome. There's a skeleton guy with like 4 arms, and he moves his sword and you have to like hit your sword in directions to get around his sword, and you slowly chop off his arms as you whittle him down. It is so fun. And then out of nowhere, you're like climbing a rope into the light with zombies like piling up behind you, World War Z style. What the hell? I don't know where this came from, but I'm digging it. With the exception of Breath of the Wild, Zelda's always done a pretty good job of balancing puzzles, combat, and platforming. Skyward Sword in particular does that super, super well. Now, as good as the dungeons are, there is a shitload of backtracking. And this is where the game just completely loses me. The back half of this game is garbage. You literally have to play one of the dungeons again completely from the beginning. They switch up the enemies a little, that's it. It's a completely reused level. And several times, you have to travel back and forth between these dungeons to get things and give them to people to progress. You have to leave Elden Volcano, go all the way to Lake Floria. Oh, and there's another problem going on in Lake Floria, so you gotta solve their problem before you'll get the cistern from the water dragon and use it to get into... It is horrible. What the hell were they thinking? And while the mini bosses themselves are great, the actual full-scale bosses, with the exception of Kalaktos, all suck. It is so jarring to go from fighting robot pirates and 4-armed skeletons that could have been in Dark Souls to fighting one of my little sister's stuffed animals. And Girahim is a horrible villain. He's a horrible boss. The sword tracking thing seems completely random as to whether or not he'll catch your sword or not. You have to fight him and the Imprisoned 3 times, and they're the 2 worst bosses in the game. Back to back, you have to fight Imprisoned, Girahim, Imprisoned. And like literally, like there's this whole part where Zelda like goes back in time, spoiler alert, and she goes and makes herself into like a amber tree sap bar of soap to like seal the Imprisoned away. And the moment you step back through the gate into forward time, he just escapes again. And my word, these spirit realms, if there's anything I want to do after spending an entire game collecting gear and weapons and upgrading myself, it's to have them all taken away from me and be forced to do stealth. On your return visit to Elden Volcano, you get captured and you have to like go around sneaking, finding all your stuff back. Like, way to completely destroy the pacing of the game. And the whole story of Skyward Sword, so I guess this is the first one canonically, and it's supposed to like introduce the actual Master Sword. It's the origin story of the secret hero blade that'll break in need to be recharged in 30 minutes. So you start off borrowing a sword from like the Knight Academy, and then you go off and you find the Master Sword, or the beginnings of it. And I'm just like, okay, so you're gonna put the other one back? You're gonna return it to the man who lended it, who entrusted it to you? Is this the legacy I'm going to leave as a character? Is Link one who just discards gifts? Is Link one who just leaves shit behind? Is Link a man who doesn't fulfill his promises? Is Link a man who doesn't care about the environment? He's just gonna litter? Bitch. And you go through all these stages of like upgrading the Master Sword and like infusing it with the 3 flames, and the Fee's horrible, by the way. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that. Fee's garbage. You get this super cringy figure skating dancing routine of Fee floating around, and there's a couple of parts where they make her sing, and you just see her like crappily animated, like open mouth shaking back and forth. It's hilarious. It is so funny. And with the music itself, I've always liked Zelda's kind of emphasis on musical instruments and their power and the magic from that. It's kind of reminiscent of, you know, the beginning of the Silmarillion, where they literally sing the world into being. So there's magic in song, there's magic in music. I like that. I like the idea of having to learn 3 different parts of a song, but it is executed miserably. So the Water Dragon, who you've already met twice at this point, you literally saved her life, and then she lent you something, which again, as far as I'm aware, you failed to return, so I guess it does make sense. And then she's like, you only have, you know, the Master Sword, and you've already saved my life, and there's a glowing Triforce on your hand. I'm still not sure if you're the chosen hero, so I'm going to literally flood an entire forest killing 90% of its life, and make you do a bunch of stupid trials to prove you're the hero one. Whereas the Fire Dragon, the moment you meet him, he immediately gives you the song. The Thunder Dragon at least has an excuse because, you know, he's sick with COVID, so he can't sing right. So you have to go back in time and get him to plant the tree in the past, and then it grows in the future, and you give him, like, the fruit to heal him. So that was kind of neat. And then he's all like, oh, 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 oh. So that was fun. But the amount of pain and backtracking and reused content and stripping me of my fun gameplay tools I had to go through to get to that, the lack of basic respect for my time and quality of life. I mean, here's the thing, like, I don't even understand why they felt the need to pad out the game. It took me 56 hours to beat it, and that was doing most of the side quests and all of the gratitude crystals for the pedophile that I guess I'm supposed to just leave alive, because Nintendo won't let you kill him. So the art style of Skyward Sword, it's fine. It's just the horrible resolution and bad, awful, muddy textures and garbage, outdated effects that make it so ugly on the eyes. The actual combat system in Skyward Sword is great. There's even a shield parry. And the actual level dungeon design in the first 2/3, at least until it starts reusing them, is phenomenal. But my goodness, the utter disrespect for your time, the utter lack of caring for basic quality of life improvements, even after a remaster a decade later, is pretty much unforgivable. Still better than Breath of the Wild.